Welcome everybody to the seasonal diet, eating what our ancestors ate when they ate it, like we were evolved to do. Tips for April. We're just now coming out of the winter, and if your ancestors are from a place with seasons, things are just starting to warm up, and the cold, harsh time with very little food is coming to an end. But we're not quite past the hardest part yet. Of course, it depends on exactly where you're from. Winter will last longer in Scandinavia, of course, than it would in ancient Greece, for example. So the Greeks would have a little bit more variety of food at this time of year, but no matter where we are, the abundant summer and fall season, we're not there yet. Our ancestors still had a little bit longer with relatively little food in their diet. They would be turning their livestock out to graze, out to the fields, so there would not be a whole lot of meat in their diet at this time of year. And you know, the winter stores of pickled and jarred and dried and other preserved foods, those stores, their pantries would have been running low because we're now at the end of the winter, so not much of that either. And we're not quite there where there is fresh fruits and vegetables growing to eat either in nature. So what do we eat? Well, here are a few tips for April. So we are still in a pretty good fasting season, although April is a time when the late winter, like early spring fasting periods are over, at least in various traditions we have around Europe. The fasting for religious reasons, both Christian and pre-Christian, by the way, they are coming to an end at this time around April. But we still don't have a ton to eat. So I have been doing a lot of intermittent fasting in the past month or so, and I'm going to continue doing this for the next month, just doing a little bit more food than I did last month. Quick weight and physique updates. I've been filming these every month to track where I'm at and how the body changes throughout the year when you eat seasonally, and not surprising that I'm the skinniest that I ever get right around this time with all the fasting and lower food consumption, just as our ancestors would have done at this time of year. I only weigh about 95 kilos, which is okay because I have a competition in a week where I have to weigh 93, but that's about as small as I ever get throughout the year. I'm usually weighing up to 105 kilos. So right now is the time where we start eating a little bit more and we put on weight slowly, which is what our ancestors would have done, but what would have been available to them at the time to eat? So maybe not animals. It doesn't make sense to kill their livestock after they've just taken care of them all winter, but animal products definitely. The eggs, the milks, the cheeses, the creams, all those kinds of things that you can make from those ingredients, both from cows, from goats, from sheep. They would have had a much better variety of milk and dairy related products than we do today. And hey, you can even try some of the stranger eggs like the duck eggs, the ostrich eggs, the quail eggs, those types of things. Our ancestors also would have had a little bit more variety in their diet for eggs than we do today. As for the meats at this time of year, it would be very little. Like I said, it doesn't make sense to be killing your livestock. But if you did eat meat, it would have been fish, lots of fish, if you lived near the coast or by a body of water where the fish would be returning up the rivers and the lakes from the ocean where they would be in the winter time, so they'd be returning coming in these next few months. There could also be hunted or trapped animals like rabbits, which is a great traditional, and it's in a lot of the spring recipes that we find around the world. We also have some early herbs, things like chives, mint, thyme, parsley. These are just a few of the things that are edible that first start to grow coming out of the winter. And there will be lots more of the herbs to come in the next few months. So plenty of fresh herbs coming up. And it's a great addition to the animal products. It's a great addition, perfect. An egg omelet with some cheese and some fresh herbs. That's a perfect spring season diet. We also have a few mushrooms that come into season at this time of year. Now, most mushrooms come into season in the fall, but there are some that start to grow out of the moist, cool soil after the snow melts during the spring, depending on your local area, but there are some mushrooms that are in season around this time of year. As for the fruits and vegetables, again, depending on where you are, some may be available. There are, we're a bit early for that in most places that have seasons at least, but there are a few winter berries that I made a video on that you can check out. They would be growing throughout the winter, and the smaller berries would start to come in the next month or two, again, depending on where your ancestors are from. Things like the raspberries, the smaller wild strawberries, things like that. Rhubarb is also another one that comes up relatively early in the year. Those are the kind of fruits that we are waiting for. And of course, finally, any preserved foods that may have lasted the winter. With our ancestors, they would have had access, if they planned well, if they didn't eat all their food during the winter. If they planned well, they would still have some of the preserved foods left, like the grains, the pickled and dried things, the salted meats, the spices, the dried herbs, that kind of stuff. They would still have at this time of year, like I said, if they prepared well and they didn't empty their pantries a while ago. And that's about it. It's definitely not the feasting season, it's not the harvest season quite yet by any means, but we're starting to come out of the hard times with little food, and they would have made the most out of what food they did have at this time of year. So those are just some tips for April. We'll be touching back next month for May and giving some more updates. How about you guys? Are you eating anything at this time of year? Where are your ancestors from? Do they have any specific recipes? Any things growing in your garden at this time of year? Or any things that you forage wild? Do you have any livestock? Let us all know.